Benefactor underwriting for this broadcast has been provided by a grant from Republic Bank. The power of red is back. Major underwriting support for this broadcast has been provided by grants from New York Community Bank, M&T Bank, Perfect Building Maintenance, Customers Bank, Collins Building Services, Marks Paneth. Additional underwriting support has been provided by grants from AmTrust Title, Bank of America, Capital One Bank, Douglaston Development Levine Builders, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Handro Properties LLC, Handler Real Estate Organization, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, John Catsimatidis Red Apple Group, New Banks, Meridian Capital Group, Ocean First Bank, RPW Group, TD Bank, the One Stop Property Group, and these friends. Boy, oh boy, at 13, he wakes up one day and he says, I'm going to be a preacher. At 14, on Mother's Day, he does his first sermon. So I have an individual who is well known in the community, who's a specialist, and then many people will say he's a mensch. I have Bishop Victor Allen Brown, the pastor of Staten Island. Thanks for being here today.
It is an absolute joy to be with you. Thank you so much for the invitation.
So tell me about your dad and then your mom.
My dad was
Interesting story.
Yeah, my dad was an incredible man who left this world too soon in my assessment. Passed away at the tender age of 46. He was a man of great faith, man of great prayer. He and my mom started the church that I presently pastor, and that church is doing remarkably well, but he certainly laid the foundation for that.
Tell me about him when he came to Staten Island to find his sister.
That is a most interesting story. They had lost contact. He was in foster care, and he was in an abusive situation, and he knew somehow, and I don't know exactly how he knew, but he knew he had a sister on Staten Island by the name of Esther.
He was in foster care in North Carolina.
He was in foster care in Queens.
In Queens, okay.
Yeah, and so he made it down to the Staten Island ferry. And he came to the ferry and he just began to walk and ask people. And as Providence would have it, he met someone who knew his sister and brought him to her.
Right, he was about 15 at this time?
No, he was only about 11 years old.
Boy.
Yes.
And he then became a barber?
Well, he graduated from McKee High School. He did take barbering, and then he went on to get his license in barbering and did that for a little while.
So tell me a little bit about Mom. Thank God it's going to be 82.
My mom is my glamour girl. She's doing remarkably well. She grew up and is from a small town, Janesville, North Carolina. And she came up in the summer of '57, met my dad, and they ended up marrying on Christmas Day, 1960.
How'd they meet?
Well, she came up to visit one of her cousins. And I don't remember all the particulars in terms of how exactly they met, but my father was popular in the community, so I'm certain that she was probably introduced to him or he to her, but it was a match made in heaven.
Now, was he practicing in the ministry at that time?
Not at that time. The decision was made back in 1972 to move us to North Carolina because that's where my mom was from. And my parents felt that that would be a better environment to raise my brother, my sister, and me.
So, few people know about this. So tell us about the early years of the bishop. You were a troublemaker. You were juvenile delinquent, you told me.
Well, I certainly was involved in childish mischief, that is for certain. But then at the age of 12 it was, I just began to embrace this insatiable passion for the ministry and for the preaching ministry, and felt my calling, felt that I was called to preach. and shared that with my dad. And my dad and I counseled about it, and we believed that the call was legitimate. I certainly believed that at the time, and so did he.
You told me you had a dream?
Yes,
Tell me
yes, I
about
had
the
a dream,
dream.
and well, in that dream that I was called similar to Samuel 3 times, and I answered the call. I went to my father. I thought he was the one who had called me, but he said, "The Lord is speaking to you. Go back, go to sleep, and the Lord will reveal to you what the next steps are." And from that dream forward, it's been a passion for the advancement of the kingdom of God, for preaching, uh, and it's a flame that has not been extinguished to this day.
So how did you decide to return to your dad returned to Staten Island at this time? Later.
My father sat me down at the kitchen table one day, and he shared with me that he had been in prayer and felt the leading of the Lord to come back to Staten Island to start a church. Mount Sinai was what he said the church would be named, and he felt we needed to move very, very soon, which we did. We ended up moving about 3 months after he and I had that conversation. I was not happy about it. I did not want to come back to New York, but he felt that this was where we were supposed to be. And so it's amazing to see how, as soon as we came back, uh, he and my mom started the church as a Bible study in our home. And then from there, we
So you
acquired.
had 7 members originally.
Yeah, we had 7 people that came to the house and was in study with us. And then in 1980, we acquired our first storefront rental property. And then the Lord just expanded the ministry from there.
Let's talk about one of the rental properties.
Sure.
It's a funeral home?
Yes, yes. In 1984, we moved from a small storefront to what was at one time the Casey Funeral Home on Staten Island. And needless to say, because it was a funeral home, that was from 84 to 86, we were not able to grow the church there because of the stigma that was on it.
So you came back, you went to high school in Staten Island.
Yeah,
right?
Susan Wagner High School. Yes.
And I think you were working also when you were going to high school, right?
No, that wasn't until college.
Okay, so you're in high school over
Yes.
there, and then you decide to go to St. John's, which happened to be on Staten Island.
Well, that was a decision that was somewhat made for me because I was seeking to go to the University of Bridgeport, Connecticut. And my father ended up having a heart attack a week after I graduated high school. And so I had to change my plans because I wanted to be close to the family and wanted to remain on Staten Island so that I could still matriculate while at the same time be close to
Why
him.
Bridgeport?
I was going to major in accounting, and they had a really, really great program. And so I was going to go there. But the
Hey,
Lord had other plans
The
for me.
Lord had a mission over there.
Other plans for me, yes.
Okay, so let's talk about the years at St. John's and some of the jobs, the security, and how you got tuition and a variety of things.
Yeah, I went to school on a scholarship, which ran out my second year in. I did not want my parents to incur that expense. And so I was able to get employment at the Mission of the Immaculate Virgin on Staten Island. At that time, they had residents there. So I worked in the special adolescent unit, which I did for about maybe a year and a half, and then came on board with St. John Security, which was very interesting because typically those security jobs went to retired police officers, firemen, because it was in retirement that would be. And the head of security knew that I would one day leave there and go to Wall Street or something, but yet he took a liking to me, and so he opened the door for me to work there. And it was a blessing because I was able to get free tuition there. So it worked out very well for me.
How do you find the job with Irving Trust, which subsequently was merged, which became Bank of New York?
Yeah, so one day when I was doing rounds in security, I went to the wall where they have job
College
postings.
placement.
Yes, yes. And I saw the advertisement for it. Now, I was majoring in finance. I minored in economics, did extremely well at St. John's, graduated top of my class from the School of Business. And so I always thought I would go into banking being bivocational because the church couldn't afford to pay me a salary. So I wanted to go into banking, and so that's how I ended it there at Irving Trust.
So let's talk about the job at Irving Trust and then the subsequent job with the government.
Sure. I was a bank examiner there, and I did that for about 11 months. And then I went back to St. John's to visit some of the persons I worked with. And so I just happened to go by that placement board, and I saw another advertisement, which was for a pensions investigator for the U.S. Department of Labor. And so I said, well, I think this might be interesting. And so I called, interviewed, and they hired me immediately.
And you stay there for what, many years?
12 years.
12 years.
I was a special agent for 12 years. And while I was working there, I was also matriculating. I was working on my master's, which
Let's talk about the story
Sure.
of how you decided to get involved, to get your master's.
Yeah, that was very interesting. I was coming through a very painful divorce, and I had a very, very prominent minister by the name of Gardner C. Taylor to counsel me. And he shared with me, he asked me a very interesting question. He said, how long do you plan to pastor? And I said, well, as long as God would have me pastor. And he says, well, do you plan to pastor for many years? I said, yeah. He said, well, if you go to your dentist, don't you want your dentist to be fully credentialed? I said, certainly. How about the doctor? I said, certainly. He said, well, if you're going to be pastoring God's people, don't you think you should have a level of expertise? I thought about that. He said, go to school. So I took my rent money and I went to New York Theological Seminary and I enrolled. That was in September of 92. By November of 92, the money had run out. And I never will forget, I was coming home from work, and I was on the city bus, and I had already resolved that the next day I was going to go to the dean's office and withdraw from school. And the tears began to uncontrollably come down my face. When I got home, there was a letter waiting for me, and that letter was from the Funds for Theological Education, and it was a competitive scholarship. And when I saw it, even though it was a competitive scholarship, I knew that this was going to be God's way of providing for me to go to school. And sure enough, I got it.
So it was the application, it wasn't?
It was the notification that my name had been selected from New York Theological Seminary to compete for this scholarship.
And how much was the scholarship?
The scholarship in total, I think it was three years. And I think it was either $5,000 or $10,000 per year. But it was enough to cover the tuition, let's put it that way.
So when do you get your master's?
Well, I graduated in 96 in May, and the dean of New York Theological Seminary at that time knew of the ministry I was doing on Staten Island and was very impressed with our progressive ministry, and suggested that I enter a new urban studies program at Eastern Baptist Theological Seminary in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, which I did. And
was that a full-time program or weekends?
That was some weekends, and then some I would have to go a week at a time. And so that program was a 4-year program. And in the 3rd year of it, my mentor, a gentleman by the name of Ray Bakke, thought that I was already in full-time ministry. And he was surprised that I was able to keep up with the curriculum while at the same time working full-time. And he said to me, you really don't need to be working full-time. You've got to focus on this. And so it just so happens that he was part of a foundation that he and his brother had started. And it's called the Mustard Seed Foundation. And what he did was he went back to his brother and to the trustees and then made it possible for me to receive a subsidy grant. And he challenged my congregation to match it so that I could leave my day employ and go into ministry full time. That was back in 1998. And I haven't missed a meal since.
Okay, so you get your PhD.
I got my what's called a Doctor of Ministry.
Right, Doctor.
Yeah, so that was in May of 2000.
So it's May of 2000.
Yes.
So let's go back to the evolution, okay? to the church that your mother and father founded
Yes.
and the growth, from the 7 people
Yes.
to close to 1,500 today?
On paper, it's over 800, but of course we know, there are people who come and go.
Right.
So, and then of course, COVID has just so impacted the attendance across, not just from my church, but across the country. So we're at about 50% capacity of where we were. So we had an active of about.
Do you do virtual? Do you do
Yes.
Zoom today?
Yes, by all means, yes. Yes, and that was a lifeline during COVID and the separation.
So how do you grow from now we were talking before, the funeral home
Yes.
was good and bad.
Yes.
Okay, the good was it gave you a sanctuary that you could go.
Yes.
The bad was it had certain
Stigma.
Stigma.
Yeah, stigma associated with it. Yeah, so what happened was my father didn't renew the lease, and so we ended up going back to our home, and we were conducting services from our home for about 3 months. And then one of our members located a storefront that was about 2.5 blocks up from the location we were in the funeral home. And so that's where we began having services. And we had services there for about 7 years.
So when did you move to your new facility?
In the latter part of '93, I located a building that is a historic building on Staten Island. It's the first synagogue built on Staten Island. And it was vacant. It was owned by a person who was using it as a warehouse. And so we were able to strike a deal. It needed a tremendous amount of work, which we undertook, and we purchased, and we moved into there in July of '94. And when I tell you the growth was instantaneous, it was remarkable to see every Sunday people just continue to come and join. And within 18 months' time, we literally went from about 35 people to over 300 people.
What do you attribute it to?
Well, I think people like to worship in a place that looks like a church. I think that's one. And then I think the other was the timing of it. I think it was just a tremendous move of God at that time. And we as a ministry march to a progressive beat, so we're not a ministry that just gathers for worship, but the tentacles of our ministry actually extend into the community. And so I believe that became a big draw for people.
Let's talk about some of the involvements, because you're involved with the inter-community and interfaith councils. You got involved with the police department, and you're chaplain for the police department.
Yes.
Let's talk about certain of those things.
I have an extensive background in law enforcement. And so when I left the government, I joined a program that was sponsored by the NYPD called the Clergy Police Liaison Program. And the purpose of the liaisons is to serve as a buffer between the police department and the community. And we're on call. So say, for instance, there's a community crisis and a precinct commander may feel that having the presence of clergy would be helpful, then we're called upon. So I was in that program for about 12 years. And then back in 2014, we had a very, very unfortunate incident on Staten Island, which I'm sure you're aware of, and that was the unfortunate demise of Eric Garner. And I served as spiritual advisor to that family, but was also well respected with the police department. And so the times there was very, very tenuous between community wanting to uprise, police not certain how to respond. And I served as a major catalyst of peace, being able to interface with the community, because I'm well respected in the community, also well respected by the police department. And through my efforts and the efforts of others, it resulted in 0 acts of violence. And so the borough commander at that time felt that it would be beneficial to the police department to elevate my visibility. And so presented the possibility of me coming on as a department chaplain, and it was enthusiastically embraced by then Mayor de Blasio as well as Commissioner Bratton at that time. And so in June of 2015, I was sworn in as a department chaplain.
How did you get involved with the Reverend Sharpton?
I am a founding board member of the National Action Network. He and I were brought into each other's space by another mentor of mine, the Reverend Dr. Wyatt T. Walker. And Dr. Walker served as Chief of Staff to Dr. Martin Luther King. And I had Dr. Walker while a student at New York Theological Seminary. He taught a class on the life and times of King. And so it was one of the best experiences I could ever have, hearing about King or meeting King vicariously through his chief of staff. And so he took a liking to me and began inviting me to various meetings. He was the pastor of the Canaan Baptist Church up in Harlem. And so it was through that connection that I got to meet Reverend Sharpton. And he and I have been friends ever since.
Let's talk about the interfaith relationships with the cardinal, with the rabbis, and the other leaders.
Again, subsequent to that whole Eric Garner situation, I was invited to be part of the Mayor's Commission of Religious Leaders that's convened by Cardinal Dolan, and Rabbi Joe Potasnik and Dr. Errol Bernard are co-chairs of that. And so they invited me to come on board, and its purpose really is to be accessible to the entire city, to foster peace where we can, to engage issues that impact our city. And it's just been a real joy being at the table with such illustrious luminaries.
What do you feel that the biggest objective of yours today in the pastoring? What do you feel that you want to accomplish?
If I can be a conduit of peace and stability, I'm really concerned about where our city is, with the rise in crime, with the chasm that seems to be driven between the races. It's very alarming to me, and I certainly did not think that we would be dealing with some of these issues in 2022. And so my legacy has been one of building bridges, and I want to continue that work in whatever fashion I can, and however God sees fit to position me. I feel that is my calling, building bridges and being used as an instrument of peace.
With regard to that, let's talk about your wife and her involvement now with the church and you.
My wife is an incredible spirit, and I'm very fortunate to have her. She not only is my lifelong partner, but she is very committed to our church. Not only is she the first lady, but she's the co-director of one of our choirs, and she is a preacher in her own right. She is also a licensed preacher, and she's a magnificent preacher. And she definitely doesn't ride on my coattails. She is a remarkable
and
preacher.
And she's also a successful insurance agent.
She's also an insurance broker.
Where do you think you want to be in 5 years with the church and you personally? Where do you see the opportunity?
Again, I really just want to be in a place where I can be maximized by God to serve the people of this city. I believe that my calling is greater than Staten Island, and I've been blessed that doors have opened for me to both do ministry and to come alongside great men like Dr. Errol Bernard, like Joe Potasnik, like our Cardinal, and others to make a difference in this city. And I want to continue to do that. As far as my tenure in pastoring, I hope to transition at some point in the future from day-to-day operations of pastoring to just being overseer of the ministry with a much younger person doing the day-to-day rigors of the ministry. And I would like to, I'd like to teach, whether that's at New York Theological Seminary or any other institution, and also spend some time writing. I've been incredibly blessed to have mounted many experiences that I would like to put on paper as an encouragement.
It would be wonderful if you put some of your sermons and certainly your discussions in a book.
Yes, Yes. So trying to carve out the time to write has been a major challenge for me.
Speaking of carving out the time,
Yes.
you work with Mayor Adams.
Yes,
in the
yes,
transition.
I'm on the transition team. I've known the mayor for about 20, 25 years. And what I'm so impressed with is that we have in City Hall someone who is transparent, who is a man of great faith, and who is passionate about wanting to see this city be the best it can be. And he knows that he cannot do it alone. And so he is committed to fostering partnerships across this city to see that the vision for greatness for this city comes to fruition. So I'm very excited about, I was excited about his candidacy. I certainly am excited about his tenure.
And I'm really excited that you've stretched your wings, as they would say, out of Staten Island,
Yes.
so you can take care of the people of Staten Island, but you're here for the entire city of New York, and working
Yes.
with the other reverends and the rabbis, and
Yes.
the priests, and the community will only do well for us. And I'm
Yes.
very fortunate to have you, and thanks for being here today.
Well, you are a newfound friend, and I hope it will be for a lifetime.
Only health and happiness and health.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
The pleasure's mine.